Okay, what's up guys? We are going to be shooting another B-roll section on this beautiful beach. If you guys can't tell, I'm back home in Cape Town. I recently did one of these like live B-roll type of videos on a beach in Bali and you guys absolutely loved it, and you guys have been requesting a new one, so that is what we are doing today. The idea, for those of you that didn't see the previous video, is that it's kind of a live demonstration of how I capture a B-roll scene, and then at the end of the video I'm gonna put together a little edit of all the footage we captured today, and I'm gonna show you guys what we managed to get. I'm gonna be shooting on this Sony RX100 just because I want to keep it really simple, really basic. No DSLR, no gimbal, nothing like that, because I want you guys to see that you can shoot this on pretty much any camera. You could even take these tips and utilize them on something like your cell phone, and it should still drastically improve your B-roll section and the cinematic footage that you guys are trying to capture. One of the main things that I think is really important for shooting B-roll is to shoot in a higher frame rate so that when you are editing your footage you can slow it down. So if your camera allows you to shoot in anything higher than something like 25 or 30 frames per second, I suggest putting it in as high of a frame rate as you can get. For example, this RX100 will let me shoot in 120 FPS, and that is going to allow me to do nice movements and slow it down to 25% or even slightly less in post-production, and it's going to make my footage really beautiful and slow, and it turns out really nice. Another one of the settings that I like to use, and not for every shot but some of the shots you got to be a bit selective with it, is to shoot in a lower f-stop, and what that's going to do is allow you to get more of a shallow background and a bit of that blur in the background. Something else that helps with that is zooming in a bit and putting your subject closer to the camera. Now that I have all of the settings out of the way, we're going to actually start shooting, and one of the most important things that I like to do, and something that I recommend to all of you beginners, is that it's a good idea to kind of think out your whole scene and block it out a bit in your mind, rather than just shooting a whole lot of things that you think is cool and then later on in the post trying to stitch it together and try to find something that does work. And I definitely find myself doing that sometimes as well, especially when you're not sure how your day is going to unfold or something, you can't really plan it that well. But for something like this, where we're making a little B-roll section of this beach, we can look around and we can plan it out quite well, and we can think about just roughly how our edit wants to look and have a good idea of it in our head. You'll notice with a lot of like really good filmers and stuff, if you suggest a shot to them, they can sometimes very easily just be like, nope, I do not need that shot, and move on. Whereas if you're not really sure what your edit's going to be, you can find yourself filming a whole bunch of random different things that you're most likely not going to use. So what we're going to do is, I've started up here on this ridge because we're overlooking this whole beach and this beautiful scenery, and the reason we came up here to start here is so that I can start with big establishing shots of this whole beach, and then we're going to go down to the beach and work our way through some of the cool little details. So we're going to start up here. Enough talking, let's actually start shooting this B-roll section, because I'm really worried about this massive cloud that's coming to overtake this whole area. So let's get into it. The first thing I'm going to do, and something that really helps, is instead of just having my camera up here and shooting an establishing shot like this, it does work and it looks quite nice. But if you lower down like this, and if I can try get some foreground in my video, which is one of my biggest tips for making shots look better, is using foreground. We're gonna get a little bit lower, get some of this bush in our foreground, and then we're gonna add a bit of movement and do a bit of a dolly shot through and over here. And something I like to do is just do the same shot a few times if you've got movements in it, just to make sure you got a nice one. Okay, and I think that's going to look really nice. Another nice thing you can do is, from going from a wide shot, you can punch into a more close-up, a more zoomed in shot. So that's what we're going to do now. The same shot with the foreground, but we're just going to be fully zoomed in on the RX100, and we can get some nice foreground. And that looks awesome. I can see some surfers here surfing on waves, and there's quite a nice frame of this rock, and then the surfers are surfing through it. So I'm going to stop here and get a couple of shots of that. And notice how in all my shots I'm kind of going low down. I'm not shooting at eye level. That's what you're used to seeing all day. If you go down, it really like makes everything look a lot better and more unusual to the eye and more interesting. I think I got that one. Next shot. Quite early in the morning and the sun's pretty low. So what I'm gonna do is get a shot of the sun, and I'm gonna do it in an interesting way where I'm gonna block the sun out with this rock and I'm gonna reveal it. And that's one of my favorite shots, is like a reveal shot by hiding behind something and then showing something of interest. It's really cool. So that's what we're gonna do with this. Instead of just standing on the beach over there and getting a shot, I'm gonna move back and get all these rocks in my foreground. It's going to create more depth in my shot. If you guys want to know a little bit more about foreground, I truly think it's one of the biggest improvements you can make to your footage, and I have a whole video just on foreground, so check it out up here if you guys want to know a little bit more. But let's shoot this shot here with our beautiful rocks as our foreground. Okay. Our next shot is going to be of some close details of these little waves breaking on the shore here. It's really interesting. It adds to the mood and the feeling of this whole place. So instead of zooming in and shooting them, we're going to try really get there and get as close as we can, moving around within our scene, and try and get like a really nice zoomed in shot of those tiny little waves hitting the shoreline. So let's try and get that. Okay, now that my shoes are nice and wet, let's move on to another shot. And something I noticed that was quite cool is these waves breaking on the rocks there, like kind of how this one's gonna do it. That looks really interesting and really cool, and lots of movement. So let's head back up onto those rocks and we're gonna try and get a shot of that. It's gonna look sick. We have made it to the little spot of the rocks where all the waves are crashing and breaking up. So we're gonna hang out here for a little while and try and get a cool shot of that. We're gonna be filming it in slow motion obviously, and it's gonna look sick when we slow it down, that huge like crash. So let's try and get one of those. Just basic composition can make the hugest difference in your shots, and it's something that's hugely overlooked by a lot of beginners as far as I can tell when I see a lot of beginner videos. So a couple of things that you can do. The first one being the rule of thirds. A lot of cameras will allow you to add a rule of thirds grid, which is like these lines on your screen. Otherwise you can kind of just try and imagine where the lines would be and line up your shots to work well with that rule of thirds grid. Kind of the way that you want to do it is in a few different ways. If you have a subject, you can put your subject on one of the intersecting points of the lines. Otherwise, something is, if for example you would be filming out here, you would want to put your horizon on one of the lines. If you think the sky is more interesting, you can put it on the bottom line. If you think the water and everything might be more interesting, you can tilt your camera down and put the horizon line on that line. Basically what you want to do is just divide your frame up into threes. So it's going to make it more pleasing to the eye, and people won't necessarily know why, but it's just going to make your shot look a little bit better. We're going to try to get a shot like that over here, and this big mountain and cloud, if you look down this way, is really interesting. So we're going to put the horizon line on our bottom third and try and get a shot like that and have this really cool unique perspective. Maybe it will look nice. And we're gonna do a slide as well. Okay, so another cool thing you can do with composition is use framing to draw the attention to a certain like part of the frame. So something I can see here is there's an interesting part where the waves are breaking on the rocks, and then before that there's kind of these other rocks before it that I'm gonna use to kind of frame up that little section over there. So that could look quite cool, and then there's the interest of the waves smashing on the thing, which is going to be nice in slow motion. So let's give it a go. Wow. Okay, there's a really beautiful scene here with the mountain and the sun behind it, and all these light rays are coming through, and we've got these soft clouds and everything. So I'm going to get a bit of a reveal shot using this rock as my foreground, and just do a few slide movements and hopefully get something really beautiful over here. I'm gonna kind of get like really in here, and I'm gonna do a nice rotation like this, And I'll keep doing it a couple times. Having those different perspectives just keeps the video way more interesting and makes the shots way more dynamic than just having them level with the horizon the whole time. Look down and look up, and all of those types of things are really going to bring some new interest into the shots. Notice this little like cutout in the rock here, so I'm going to try to get another nice framing shot of these palm trees looking down here, create some really cool like leading lines. So I get a shot from here, and then we're going to try and shoot some other interesting things here because it's like a really unique, cool looking place if you have a look down there. Let's start off with this framing shot, and what we're going to do is a slow punch through here. Okay, and we're going to try like a weird twisting shot on here just to add some like interesting movement. I'm doing slides side to side. Something that I mentioned in my previous video is that a lot of beginners like to pan the camera like this, and this isn't really that great of a look when you have the final video. It's a bit of a weird look. You'll notice in cinema and stuff that you rarely see this type of shot. If you want to do a side to side shot, you can do a slide like this. In my opinion, it looks much better, and especially when you've got something like foreground in the shot. A pan just looks a bit weird. So a nice slide, super cinematic, super nice. Okay, and I think that's going to be good. And one of the other shots that we're going to get is some close-up details of this like leaf thing here. It looks quite cool too. Okay, that is going to be a cool shot. I'm going to try to do a walking shot. It's a little bit tricky, but even if you get a little bit of shake in your footage, once you're in Premiere Pro or whatever editing software you use, you can use some warp stabilizer. If you try to get it as smooth as you can, it often ends up still looking really nice and smooth and almost looks like a gimbal shot if you can pull it off well. So we're going to try to get one of those over here. What I like to do when I'm walking is keep the camera a little bit away from my body so that I don't pick up any of the shake of my steps, and then just get low and keep your knees bent and like really try and walk smooth, kind of like a weird heel to toe thing. So we're going to do that down here, and then I'm going to get a shot kind of doing the same thing through that way and looking over the bush. Something to keep in mind with a shot like this, especially if you're shooting in a higher frame rate, is that even if you've got some jerks in your steps and everything, there should be little pieces of footage in between there somewhere that end up looking really nice and smooth. And if you can slow that down to like 20% or something, it's going to look really nice and smooth even between your steps. So we're going to do a long one here, and we'll cut a small piece out for the ending. Okay, so let's go down here. And then we're going to do another one over here, and I'm going to lift it out over the bush and like show a bit of the beach, another bit of a reveal scene. Okay, and that's cool. I'm gonna get some of our ending shots, and instead of when we started and we were punching our shots in like this, for the ending shots, I'm gonna do big establishing shots, but they're gonna be moving out like this. And also I think something that might be quite cool for this particular one is that I have these bushes over here, and I'm gonna pull back and then I'm gonna dip it behind the bushes, and it's gonna like cut out to black. And I think that's quite a cool, interesting ending, and it really gives that like ending feeling. So let's try one of those over here. What I'm going to do is use this as foreground, but I'm going to be way above it, and then I'm going to pull back like this, and more of the foreground is going to get revealed, and then I'm going to dip behind it like that, and that's where our video will end. So let's give it a go. Okay, again, I'm just going to do a couple so I make sure I have one that I'm really happy with. Okay, I think that is looking cool, so we should be good with that one. Okay, that is going to be it for the B-roll shots that we're shooting today, guys. I'm really happy with what we ended up getting, and we didn't get engulfed by the huge grey storm cloud, and actually in the end it kind of added a bit of an interest factor and like some cool interesting stuff in our shots. So that's awesome. I put together an edit using some cool editing tricks like speed ramping, added some sound effects, and obviously threw some music in the background. Check out what I came up with using the shots that we captured today, and let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Okay, so as you guys can see from that video, you don't need some fancy gear. We were just out here capturing some random shots of interesting things, and we managed to put together a pretty cool edit. I hope you guys will agree. I know that a bunch of you guys have been commenting saying that you want to see one of these videos that feature a person, so that video is in the works and you can expect it very soon. But that is going to be it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.